Hey folks, Mike Dawkins from World Cast Anglers here. We survived the 4th of July. We hope you did too. And this week has been full of the 4th of July hangovers while everyone heads back to work and gets some normalcy back in their life while our fishing ticks along on all cylinders as we look into the rest of our summer season ahead and for the weekend of July 11th and 12th. Looking into this weekend for fishing, we've got sort of a scorcher on our hands. Saturday, it's going to be 90 degrees and 57 as the low. Sunday, we're looking at 93 and 61. Now, keep in mind, that's for Victor. Lots of sunshine, lots of dry conditions, and that's going to extend out in our 10-day forecast. We're not going to see it as scorching hot, but we're going to see it back, in those low 80s, mid 80s, which is pretty normal around here. But we're definitely going to have a bit of a heat wave here coming up. That says two things to me. As you've been watching our fly fishing forecasts, like coming into these weeks, I've been talking about how this season has been earlier than a lot of other seasons before us. We had a very low snowpack. We had a very mild runoff, and we saw our fishing conditions come online quicker. So what that says to me is we're going to start to see our fishing periods transition earlier into some of those early morning and low light periods where normally we don't really start to see that until the end of July or the beginning of August. We're going to start to see that here going into the middle portion of July. So look for your prime fishing windows during these sort of heat waves and stuff to be more correlated towards that early morning time period, lower light periods, mornings and evenings, but we like those morning periods because those water temperatures are going to be a little bit still on the cooler side. The other thing it tells me is I'd be ready with some terrestrials earlier than later this year. Normally right now we're just still talking about like salmon flies are still hatching on the South Fork, and we're just getting our PMD fishing on the South Fork going, and the snake is dropping into its own, and it's the consistency of its dry fly fishing is getting there. This year it's going to be a little bit different. Be ready for a little bit of everything. I would start packing some of those terrestrials earlier in your fly box this year than previous years. Those hoppers, those beetles, those ants, with these drier conditions, we're going to see them around earlier, and I think they're going to be more prevalent than previous years. So those two tips: start looking for your fishing conditions and your fishing quality to be best during some of these cooler water periods of the early morning, and be ready with a lot of those terrestrials in your fly box earlier than previous seasons. We saw the hatches of our bluewings, our Mother's Day caddis, our salmon flies, everything earlier. Why wouldn't that be the same thing for our terrestrials? So think about that as you start looking into your fishing, adventures for this summer season. And I'd grab that hopper and terrestrial box that I usually have stashed away until about August, and I'd start bringing it out now. Like I was saying, our 10-day forecast, it's not going to be as hot, but a lot of high pressure, a lot of sun, a lot of dry conditions, 80s and 50s, pretty typical Jackson Hole and Teton Valley summer weather. Palisades Reservoir right now is 40% of capacity. Jackson Lake is 79% of capacity. The South Fork of the Snake, we saw those flows increase last week to around 14,000. We got 14,200 there coming out of Palisades Dam, 14,200 there around Heise, where consumptive water users and irrigators are starting, to take some additional water there for ag purposes and whatnot. The South Fork is still a pretty darn good, solid option. We're seeing a smattering of salmon flies top to bottom here and there. The golden bite and the golden stones has been probably the big bug bite to note. Water walkers, Chernobyl bugs, those double stacked chubbies, anything along those lines has been really productive. PMD fishing on the riffles has been pretty darn good, but those fish are educated and they seem to get a little bit more educated faster every year. So your smaller CDC patterns, your cripples, your last chance cripples, stuff along that gamut of those CDC tricked out Spring Creek flies are going to be uber productive there on the riffles. Don't rule out the yellow sallies. Don't rule out the caddis there on the South Fork of the Snake as well. 4th of July is a busy place like it was on all of our rivers. So figuring out those times when you can zig, when people are, around and staying out of that 9 to 5 window is only going to be productive for your enjoyment and your productivity on the water. The Snake in Jackson, 5,000 CFS coming out of Jackson Lake Dam, 8,280 CFS there on the lower river before the salt and the grays. So we're probably grossing 10,000 CFS, maybe going into Palisades Reservoir, and the discharge is around 14,000. So there's a loss there, whereas the reservoir is being drafted. The snake is coming into its own. You know, those higher water conditions that I've been talking about the previous couple of weeks is going to make some of those fishing a little bit more challenging. You know, I think you're just going to have to work a little bit harder to find those softer water types that we don't really normally have to find, you know, there on the snake. It doesn't mean that, you know, those fish aren't going to eat dry flies. It doesn't mean that there's not fish in the river or anything along those lines. It's just going to be a different season. So, you know, take advantage of it, learn some new things. Dry droppers are going to reign supreme over there during these higher water periods. So anything like those, I was saying, water walkers, Chernobyl bugs, we love this double stack chubby that we've been having in the shop. It can hang and support a lot of big droppers, pairing that with, you know, a bullet quill, a Duracell, you know, your Spanish bullets, pheasant tails, even a small rubber leg is going to be really productive there on the snake. Teton, we got 446 CFS up here in the valley. Outside of Driggs, 726 CFS on the lower river. When we start to get some of these higher, you know, ambient, warm heat wave days, you know, freestones like the Teton and some of our other, you know, sort of freestone areas, you're going to see that temperature affect it more than, say, like a tailwater environment like up by the dam on the South Fork or there on the Snake. So look for these early morning periods to be really productive on the Teton. Colder water temps and more comfortable water temps for our trout friends, and it's going to put you outside of the window of the general recreational users. Lots of PMDs out there, smattering of some leftover drakes, yellow sallies, a golden here and there. That dry dropper fishing and small dry fly fishing with parachute extended body PMDs, small parachute Adams, purple parachutes, PMD cripples, you know, a plethora of different caddis species. That small dry fly fishing has been really fun and really good. Look for a lot of those fish too in the middle of the river, seam lines, water types like that. They're not necessarily always on the bank, and you'd be really surprised at the fish that you see in the middle of the river there on the Teton. The lower river's still been pretty darn solid. I would look for some of that to transition, especially the old dam site, Hog Hollow, and that stuff to be some of those early morning fisheries with your dry droppers or your golden stones and some streamers. Don't rule those sections of water out as well. The Henry's Fork up in Island Park, 1,280 CFS coming out of the box. We saw an increase and a decrease there, you know, hoping for some consistency. 1,760 CFS on the lower river around Ashton. Starting from the bottom, you know, we're starting to see, you know, those PMDs, rusty spinners, or the spinner fall in the morning, and caddis. Those water temperatures are getting a little bit warmer. We're seeing a lot of weed growth. Prime opportunities for dawn patrol, early morning periods, and prime opportunities for some of the earliest, you know, opportunities to fish your terrestrials, and your hoppers are going to be on that lower river of the Henry's Fork, Warm River to Ashton, you know, Lower Mesa, Riverside, Hatchery Ford. Some of that more turbid, highly oxygenated water is going to fish well sort of all summer long. You know, dry droppers, double small dry attractors, streamer fishing can be really good in there in low light periods, you know. And as we see these higher than average flows like up there on the Henry's Fork, I say it every week, but you know, we tend to gravitate only towards some of those places during salmon flies or some of those early time periods when we see the first hatches. They're definitely good all summer long. So if you're looking to do something different and you're looking for some more of that dry fly fishing, dry dropper fishing, don't rule out that middle section of the Henry's Fork. Up there on the ranch, things are a bit of the same. It'll be interesting to see what this heat does to things. Leftover drakes around, leftover flavs around, PMDs, caddis, you know, they've been a lot of the main focuses up there. And then the ants, the honey ants, the small beetles, the small hoppers, things of that nature are going to be really key moving in here into the meat of our summer and the sort of beginning of our August time frame. So don't forget those in your box, like the message I was saying before. Box Canyon, still another great option, dry dropper style with a golden or maybe a green drake, double nymph rigs with small rubber legs, and any of sort of your tailwater technical tailwater fare, I will say, is going to be effective in the box canyon. You can make it as long or as short as you like. It's a great late evening float. It's a great thing, like right in the middle of the day, just sort of fish for a couple hours. Same with a lot of sections on the Teton. You can fish it for 2 hours. You can fish it for 8 or 10. So there's a wide range of flexibility of fishing opportunities in those floats. I've past couple days, I've been spending a lot of time on some of our walk wade trips. As I was saying in the messaging of things are happening early, those opportunities are going to happen a little bit earlier this year as well. Snake River, I'm sorry, South Fork of the Snake, Teton River, those trips are all open and they're starting to fish really well, if not sort of dropping into shape. They're all going to be like their own little unique, ecosystem. So one that drains a really high alpine area is going to have probably more water and colder water than a lower level one. So you're going to have to be strategic in how you sort of fish those. A lot of the Snake River tribs, should be in great shape and start to fish in their sort of true summertime fashion. So if you got on the fishing bug a little bit early this year because we had those great late winter and spring conditions, and now's the time to get some exercise, you know, check out some of our tribs, some of those smaller walk wade fisheries. You'll have a blast. And if you're complaining about this place being busy, whether it's in Teton Valley or in Jackson, that's a great opportunity to get away from some folks and do some different things. Yellowstone National Park, it's still offering some really good solid fishing, especially wade fishing. The Yellowstone River below Yellowstone Lake opened on July 1st, and we've had some good reports of, maybe some leftover salmon flies, golden stones, green drakes in the beginning of the PMBs up there. Don't rule out the salt down there in Star Valley. Don't rule out some of the sections of the green. It's going to have a little bit shorter of a window. So once again, like last week, it's like throwing a dart at the dartboard. Wherever you go, you're probably going to have some pretty darn good fishing. But this year, like I've been saying, is going to be a unique one. So adjust your expectations. Get out there when not all the other anglers are out there if you can, and enjoy your time being on the water and summer in the greater Jackson Hole area. Fly Shop's open 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Stop in. We've got everything you need for any of your pursuits of wherever you're going in the greater Yellowstone ecosystem of fishing. So we've got a great staff and a great product selection for everybody this year. So we look forward to seeing everybody in the Fly Shop. Good luck. Stay hydrated. Wear lots of sunscreen and stay out of the sun the best that you can here during this heat wave. And looks like things are going to cool off next week. So have a great weekend and a safe weekend on the water. Thanks for tuning in. We're thankful for everybody's business over the 4th of July holiday and into the summer season. So thank you, and we'll see you here next week.